And I think our magic number is 8.5, so I think we're okay, actually.
Do we have that? I think I kind of, I got
Eight.
Uh,
The line you don't count. 8, 9.
Because I've got 7 present, I think, and then two virtuals.
the virtuals don't count quorum. That's what
Yeah.
you're
Oh,
They're
I'm
not-
sorry. Oops.
I
You know
don't
what? My
count.
bad. We're only 7.
Okay. I think we're gonna get there though. So we can get started with the committee reports. So let's do that and we'll just go in terms of an order of the agenda. So we'll start with land use, housing and zoning.
Okay, so we had 3 draft resos this month. The first one is 871 7th Avenue. That's a 71-story mixed-use tower with transit improvement bonus at the 50th Street subway station. No affordable housing is included. We have significant concerns about curb cuts, pedestrian safety, and construction impacts while the building's being built for the next 4 years. We voted 9-1-0-0 to deny the application unless our listed conditions are met. They're in the reso, but the key conditions are site safety, construction controls, 24/7 ombudsman that's available to the community, it's Community Board 5, loading and community protections.
Any questions? Comments?
Okay, so the next one is 1633 Broadway, Pops. This is an outdoor cafe application for a 2,100 square foot cafe in this Pops on West 50th Street. And we have severe problems with this. So we voted 9-0-0-0 to deny this application because it would remove a sidewalk extension space intended for pedestrian circulation. We were not given any justification as to why this converted public space to private space is good for the community. And no study was provided showing the space as underused. So again, no justification to convert it to private use. This is the 4th time this applicant has refused to provide public seating, restroom access, and signage indicating that these amenities are available to the public. As I said, there were 3 previous applications that denied the same reasons as this denial.
Questions? Comments? Keep going.
And the third one is the Rethread project, which is an application, well, it's an appeal for us to support seed funding request to city council. So this nonprofit called Rethread is looking for $250,000 seed funding for feasibility studies to take a look at finding a 300,000 square foot permanently affordable garment manufacturing space in the garment center. This is a nonprofit-led model that would support jobs, training, and industry retention. This does align with our MSMX commitments to preserve the garment district. And our resolution recommended approval and urges the city to coordinate and to align with the funding. And also we call for ongoing engagement with CB5. The vote was approval 9-0-0-0. Thank you.
Questions? Comments? Anyone's online is great and someone just flagged up because I'm going fully down.
No.
No, yeah, I think we're on now, but just generally.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Nancy. Next up, landmarks, Kevin.
Hey everybody, sorry for not being there in person. Landmarks had 3 resolutions last week. The first was Central Park. They're doing a master plan. They're changing all the signs, the 54 entrances to the park, as well as all the bathrooms. I included a few photos of what the signs are going to look like in the resolution in the back, if you're curious. Central Park being Central Park, they're actually very well done, and their presentation was terrific. And they assured us that the signs would be placed in a way that they would not, meaningfully obstruct any views or historical aspects of the park. So passed unanimously 9-0-0.
Questions? Comments? Next one.
Next one is 595 Madison Avenue, also known as the Fuller Building. They have a very distinctive all brass, gold plated, it appears gold plated, service entrance right next to their main entrance of the building. Again, there's a picture of it in the back of the resolution if you want to see it. They are completely redoing the door mechanism. Previously, the door would actually slam down like vertically, sort of like a guillotine style, but for safety reasons, they're redoing it, and now the doors are going to swing out like doors you would normally expect doors to do. Again, it's safety driven, but aesthetically, it's exactly the same. It's going to look, you're going to struggle to find a difference in the photo. So again, passed unanimously 9000.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? Okay, next one.
Lastly is 50 Vanderbilt Avenue, also known as the Yale Club building. This is a traditional or a terrific, very old landmark in the city. It's interesting, the pictures they showed of the building when it was built, and there was no other buildings nearby. Anyway, they're doing two things. First, they're renovating their rooftop enclosure for outdoor dining. There's a picture in the resolution. And second, they're redoing all the building windows. The rooftop enclosure, it's basically just a big awning that they have over their outdoor dining seats. It'll be a little bit closer to the edge, but it'll actually be lower. So it'll actually be less visible from the street, which is good. And then the windows themselves are the exact same style as the existing windows. So both of these were no problem. It was a great presentation. Passed unanimously again, 9000.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? All right, thank you, Kevin. All right, next up is Parks, and Libby, I saw your message, so if we'll do you now in this order, but for Milan, when you're making the voting, if you could put Parks at the end.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so we had 3 draft resolutions. Most of it was routine. Some of it is like to highlight some high level changes, or exciting pieces of our resolutions. So first up, we had, as you may recall, the full year-round restaurant at Union Square Pavilion, the Ladies Pavilion. Because it's not a landmark building, the design for the renovation came to Parks. The biggest things that we wanted to highlight in this was asking for some green, resilient architecture within it, as far as the roof and as far as solar energy. And then many on this board will be happy to know that we resecured and reaffirmed signage and the commitment to signage of their public bathrooms and also the outdoor seating area. And they also agreed, as they had offered in their original presentation, to have the community involved in their space, which was part of their pitch, and they just reaffirmed that to us. So we wanted to memorialize that in a resolution. It ended up passing unanimously 11-0-0-0.
Any questions? Any comments? Okay, next one.
Next up was the annual programming for the 34th Street Partnership for their spring and summer programming. Most of it was the same type of programming they'd done previously. One of the bigger changes, though, is that they've tried to really intentionally incorporate more children-friendly programming and draw families to the district, which the committee really approved and really liked and wanted to encourage more of. It involved the bike, learn to ride a bike, and they're going to do that a couple different times. We also, once again, given our commercial task force, wanted to delineate between commercial use and sort of free public programming, which came up again, and something that we've been discussing in general as a committee and sort of behind the scenes. The representative said that they would love to coordinate with us more on SAPO permitting and coordinate a little bit more behind the scenes because they have somewhat limited control of that also. So we just reaffirmed that we're going to be in better communication on that, and it passed 11-0-0-0.
Great. Questions? Comments? Next one.
All right, so our final one was annual programming from Union Square Partnership for their annual summer programming in the park. They scaled back a little bit in part due to the FIFA World Cup stuff. A lot of things are up in the air. They don't have a lot of visibility for things, but it wasn't as limited for that. They just generally have scaled back somewhat. Um, we liked basically what they were doing. It's the same thing that they've mostly done in the past. One of the things that the committee did feel pretty strongly about was that in the bids consideration of their expansion, we wanted to make sure that they returned to the committee and said what would be changing, if anything, given that. But that's it. And it passed 11-0-0.
You good? Any questions? Comments? Okay. Also, are you speaking to CSQL?
Can.
Okay.
So we had one resolution, which was in support of the New York State Assembly and Senate One City Act bill. This bill would allow New York City agencies to share residents' personal information with one another for the limited purpose of connecting people to benefits. Agencies are not currently able to share information with each other, so the goal of the bill is to enable better coordination of information across agencies to increase opportunities to connect vulnerable New Yorkers with benefits. Our resolution was in support of this legislation with a few callouts of key considerations that we discussed in committee around informing individuals of how their data is being used, opportunities to provide consent and revocable consent to use of data, and then ensuring that this legislation is not used to build centralized databases aggregating New Yorkers' personal information, and clear communication around the use, again, of this data and the purpose of aggregating or sharing this data. So this passed 11-0-0.
Questions? Comments? Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Transportation. Sure.
Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, so Transportation Committee, we had one resolution for DOT's micro hub pilot program. So micro hub pilot program is basically a pilot program for local distribution hubs as an attempt to kind of cut down congestion, pollution, etc. While DOT did not ask us for a resolution, we as a committee thought it was important to outline 10 points that we stood for and just memorialize that, which are listed here. So for DOT to go and field verify, to implement daylighting where possible, to have rules, establish rules, IDs for the vendors, etc. Some system of accountability, clear signage and then enforcement behind that signage, maintain their sites, noise controls, where and how the e-bikes would charge, and have program stability. When DOT spoke, they had some turnover amongst their vendors. So we wanted to ensure they partnered with vendors that could, stand the test of time. So.
Great. And the vote.
A vote was unanimous.
Questions? Comments?
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm just looking again. How does the citing gonna work? So this is interesting, Tiffany did a lot of work on this, and they had given us some sites.
Yeah.
To which Tiffany, ran, polls, went to the bids, with respect to those sites. She gave feedback on, hey, 2 of the sites, not so great, the other sites are good, to which DOT was like, well, we have to go and field verify these sites, to which in the video, we've got some back and forth of like, well, you guys gave us these sites. You still got to go and field verify them, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just wonder if there's anything about citing, which I mean, whatever, this is great. We can talk about it at work. So now, it doesn't implicate the resolution, I'm just curious.
Yes.
It's a trial, period.
Yeah, no, I know,
They're gonna report back.
yeah, okay.
Anyone else? Thank you, Karen. All right, last but not least, Seth.
Yes, so we had 3 resolutions this week. The first one was a letter, which responded originally to Assemblymember Tony Simone's proposed legislation, but we received like a last minute notification that Kathy Hochul had, the governor had announced an alternate plan, but it's not quite finalized yet. So we wanted to put a comment out there on just how we feel generally about modifying alcohol permitting for the World Cup. So as outlined, the key points are that this change to the permitting regulations is temporary, so it's from June 1st of this year to July 31st, as we have in the reso. And then there's a couple other key points like allowing for 4 a.m. potential close times for these outdoor, constrained spaces. And then a few other spaces. But the key point is that it's trying to just sort of prepare for the World Cup and allow businesses to sort of define, spaces outside that they can serve alcohol. So we discussed it, and broadly there's support, but also serious concern. So we listed out the specific concerns from the committee here. I think a key one to mention is that operating hours we thought should be constricted to live match duration plus or minus, additional hour, rather than that blanket 4 a.m. closing time, which was a pretty substantial concern for people. I think some other things we're just worried about just general quality of life issues. So call for things like adequate coordination with the NYPD, strict, rules around what the boundaries are of alcohol service and other restrictions. So with that, we passed it, what's our vote there? 13-0-1-0, so we had one abstention.
Questions? Comments? Right, keep going.
Awesome. All right, the next one was in keeping with our trend of like non-controversial and then a controversial one. We have this non-controversial one first. Everybody, the applicants were there in person and they gave a really nice like overview of what they're gonna do. And it's on the border of Union Square, which is usually a potentially problematic area, but it's a very small bar. The hours are 2 a.m., but likely during the week it'll close early. And yeah, just very small and a lot of cute features. So that did pass. Let me make sure. I think it was unanimous.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, unanimous. Yeah.
questions. Comments.
Nice. Okay, and the next one was the controversial one. Taj or Out of Ordinary was back. And this was essentially like we had passed a denial in January, and then they came back and applied for a reduced request essentially. So they removed their later hours request. And we passed. We came to an agreement where it wasn't a denial, but we sort of applied our RLA restrictions. So we asked for the primary change being like 2 a.m. hours, whereas now it's like 2:30 during the week, 3:30 on the weekend. So that did pass. We had one opposed, so it was 13-1-0-0. Just a note, after the meeting, we found that the applicant will likely not agree to the 2 a.m. piece. They would agree to everything else, so it's sort of unfortunate that hour, might make it not work out, but we did pass it nonetheless.
Questions? Comments? Okay. All right, yeah,
So the order of the reso package, did I hear that Parks?
so we're gonna just push parks to the end.
Okay, and everybody else is fine?
Yeah, everyone, same order, just parks at the end.
There also looked like there were a couple typos with an apostrophe in the resolutions.
Yeah, that may be, I have a very old computer and it doesn't
Yeah.
read.
Speaking of, yeah.
Some of the.
Yeah, I figured it was just a graphic thing, but
Yeah,
if it's moving, I figured I'd at least say something. I'd
yeah,
try.
I need to use a different computer to put all the landmarks images in, so I will do all that before it goes to full work.
But yeah, just if you have any edits, just send line edits to Marisa and that'll be helpful. Okay, anything else on the resos of the agenda? Nancy?
When are these draft resos sent out to the full board for their review
They, I think typically have been going out by Thursday at the latest.
of this week?
Thursday of this
In
week.
advance.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that's what we've been generally aiming for. Okay, next item is the budget update. Do you want to start?
Yep, so folks can grab a copy of the budget or look in your materials. There have been some changes since the last version. So some of the changes is one, there was an error in the budget for unallocated items. We had originally budgeted 5,502, but we meant to budget 500. There was an error in the software system, but that's been resolved. And then there was a proposal to move some budget but keep the overall spending the same between staff salaries and general services. So this version compared to the previous one shows a shift of 25,000 from staff salaries to general services. So you'll see the reduction in staff salaries and an increase in general services, but we anticipate being under there. And then the biggest item and the one for our potential discussion is that we are currently anticipating, if you project the actual year-to-date spend of 211 against our $294,000 budget and where we think the last few months of the years will come out, we're anticipating a surplus of around $31,000. And we've had surpluses before. We can talk a little bit about what that means. One thing that we typically do is we'll try to prepay certain items for the following year. But that's limited. So there'll be some benefit from that. But then there will certainly be budget left over. And so I'll turn it over to you, Brad, to kind of talk about our options.
Yeah, so that's the next thing, but before we move into what we can, well, before you all spend the $30,000, are there any questions about any of the what Congress went over? Melissa and Nancy.
Just what are the primary line items or areas of the budget where that 30K is roughly sitting, and do we need to stay within those allocated areas in terms of thinking about where the spend goes?
So I don't think we need to stay within any particular category for the 30, but do we want to speak a little bit to where I think it's like salaries a bit?
Right, so
Yeah.
there was a surplus in our salary lines, and part of that comes from we had some attrition savings. Isabel didn't start until close to the end of August, so we had a couple months of salary savings from that. So that's leading to this sort of larger than usual surplus. And then we had a $5,000 discretionary grant from Councilmember Powers. So between those two things, we have an additional surplus, but we have been consistently having about a $20,000 surplus over the last few years. So I think 30 is unusual, but 20 seems to be where we've been landing.
This is a use it or lose it
Yes.
situation.
That's right. It reverts to the city if we don't spend it.
And you are not allowed to give staff bonuses.
Good to know. Any other questions about the budget before we move on to what we can spend the rest of the money on? So see none. All right, so I think, Marisa, I'm gonna turn it over to you because I think you have a few kind of larger items that the office is thinking about, and then after that, we can talk about the remainder.
So I mean, the office request for use of some of the surplus is to update all our computers. So that would be 4 new computers and monitors, which comes to $8,200. We could also have 4 new computers, a few less monitors for $6,200. And the other place we'd like to put some funds is the new furniture for the new office, which is starting to feel real. Hopefully in the fall, we will be moving right upstairs to a fully finished space. And I would love to take some new, more mobile furniture, desks on wheels, chairs on wheels, so that we can really have a very flexible space up there.
And that number is.
Well, I mean, I'll buy as much furniture as possible as you give me. if things aren't too hung up, with all the shipping issues going on right now, you know, around $8,000. But
So is it accurate to say the requests are about 16,000, about half of the surplus?
yes,
Yes, if we go with the maximum for those keeping track at home, I think we're at 14.8 is the leftover. So, both of those, I'm just gonna speak for myself, seem very reasonable to me, and I don't see any reasons, but I'd love to hear if there are any for why we shouldn't go forward with, I think, both the furniture and the enhanced monitor. 'Cause I don't think, you know, monitors are getting any cheaper in the future, so we might as well buy them now while we have a surplus. And then for the remainder of that, and we will talk about sort of process wise, but for this, the next item on the agenda, but I think a land use consultant is probably another good idea for the upcoming year. A similar model to the way we did it for this year in the past fiscal year, where we do that process now, put them on retainer, and then spend that money now, but have it available to us for the coming year. So is there any concerns or thoughts about the land use consultant? Okay.
Last year, I think our process for a land use consultant was that we put out a request for proposals and then we had an opportunity to review it. But I don't believe that options went to the full board, although options came to the executive. Do you anticipate a similar process this year?
That's what I want to talk about next on that next item. So I
Okay.
just want to talk about the idea of a land use consultant, not how we get to that in the
Okay.
budget number, and then we can talk about the process afterwards.
And we're saying sorry,
Yeah, go
and
ahead.
we're saying that the allotment of the remaining 14 would be that.
No,
Oh,
so, I mean, we can talk about exactly where we land in terms of that
Okay.
number, because I think there are other items that we want to, one of them being a social event.
right. That's what I was gonna ask about.
That
Okay.
we want to spend, and that, also the 8,000 number from Marisa sounds like it's a little bit, for the furniture is a little bit fungible, so it might
Sure.
go up or
Okay.
down a little bit.
Right.
But what I'm thinking is we do the hardware updates for the office, we do the furniture, we do a sizable chunk, probably around the same as what we did last year for the land use consultant, and then we put the rest towards either a social event
Yep.
or other things, and then we also have prepaying, which I think is what, in like 2,000-ish range, give or take.
yeah, that, you know, not every vendor allows us to prepay, unfortunately, like the copier, which is our biggest expense, it doesn't allow us to prepay. But we'll do what we can.
Yeah,
Nothing else associated with a potential move that we have to budget for?
No, because, you know, the way we structured it now is they will do the reconstruction upstairs, and we will be able to stay in this space, so we will just move right up. So, while before we thought maybe we'd need to think of storage, maybe we'd need to think of paying for some meeting space or something like that, we shouldn't have to do it.
Yeah.
movers, will the building help with that, or?
I feel like I could just pay the guys downstairs,
Okay.
since we're just going one flight up.
Okay,
Like, I don't feel like it'll cost too much.
And on the land use thing, was last year's number inclusive of Midtown South, or that was the year before? I don't remember.
we did that and correct me if I'm wrong, we did that as a separate standalone contract and then did a
Retainer.
year-long retainer
Right.
following that.
I have a question. I didn't know we were moving. Is
We weren't going to move, we were gonna stay in the same place.
Okay.
But
We were
then
gonna tell you.
upstairs space opened up.
oh, is it the same?
It's apples to apples. It is the same
Okay.
square footage. It looks very different, but it's the same square footage. And the same idea. We would have, more of a square, open, common area where we would meet. So windows to windows, we wouldn't have this dividing wall here. Our offices would be in the front. No drop ceilings, it'll be nice, tall,
Great.
high ceiling, nice lighting, no more fluorescent lighting, new rugs, new pantry and storage areas. We are looking into, you know, we do not want to take these file cabinets, if we can help it. So we're looking into, scanning anything that we need to scan. And Josh feels like we can do a lot with Claude. You know, just using the copier and then organizing it. But a lot of this stuff, we can also just, shred.
Right.
And the city, because these are city documents, the city takes care of that. That's not our expense.
Are there any other items for that 14-ish thousand dollars? Anyone else feel strongly we ought to be spending on any other committee requests or?
I feel like we should be spending more on getting out the office and, you know, making sure you get the best hardware that you need for the, going forward, you know, so for the future. So I would be in favor of possibly like increasing a little bit, if there's room.
Yeah, I mean, so we're buying new hardware for the offices. The desks will be provided.
I mean, no, the desk would be part of
Right,
our
the
budget.
8,000.
Yeah, that will be part of the
Okay.
furniture, new chairs, new desks,
New
Um,
meeting tables and
yeah.
chairs as well.
not new desks for staff, but for just, conference tables, I mean. Kind of like what they have at Amazon, those sort of thin
Yeah,
rolling
totally.
things so that we can
Yeah,
make different configurations and such.
yeah, I'm not opposed to that, but I think we are relatively covered. Cause all the like, you know, hard construction costs, finishes, lighting is already there, the walls are basically there, they'll paint, all that sort of stuff, I think.
They'll wire us, you know,
We'll do all the IT.
we're gonna, hang the Ls, from the ceiling. And. Yeah, they'll do all the wiring and the IT work and all that sort of stuff, so that's not our cost.
And how long is our lease?
This lease was 10 years. I assume the next lease is 10 years. I'm involved with getting DCAS in the building together and keeping them talking, but I'm not doing the actual negotiation of the lease terms.
So, yeah, so I think, I'm not opposed to that, but I'm just not sure what that thing is
Yeah.
that we're spending more money on.
Me neither. I just feel like, you know, we're only gonna move once in the next 10 years
That's true.
to do it right.
Well, the building is building it out, you know, it will look lovely. It's their expense. We'll have a new pantry and a coffee area and, rug and tile and all that lovely stuff. But it won't come out of our budget.
Hold on.
Are there any software subscriptions, tools, apps like that could be helpful? I feel like we've had chats about this in the past. You know, productivity stuff, survey stuff, whatever it is. I feel like that might not make much of a dent in the budget and could be really helpful.
It won't be Windows 8 anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I again, not opposed to that if there are particular ones that you're interested in, because I'm basically. The way at least I'm thinking about this is our social event is kind of the miscellaneous, like what we don't spend on everything else, we spend on the social event. And so if there are things that people, you know, I want to try this for a year, I'm open to that. You know, I don't know if we have a Claude subscription, for example, it sounds like we might be
Yes,
using that, but like.
Right, exactly. So,
something like-
yeah, there are some, you know, Josh has a wish list of these things, but it's not a huge expense.
Yeah, that, I was just gonna say, like,
Yeah.
I think they're
It's $100,
such
that's
low
not bad.
cost, that I
Yeah.
think would need to be part of this consideration.
Yeah. Okay,
But if
So-
anybody has recommendations, please send them our way.
so yeah, I think broadly, are people aligned with sort of those 4 buckets of technology, furniture, land use consultant, and then miscellaneous / social event? Great. And then next to the land use consultant discussion, so for that, last year, the way we approached this is we put out an RFP. We, I I think we solicited names from this committee and the land use committee. That all went through the office, that was submitted, and then those firms responded. We reviewed those. And then selected from that for the consultant that we picked for the year, which was George Janes. The question I want to kind of pose here, based on that discussion last year, is whether or not we want to repeat that process or just extend George James's contract. Because at the completion of that process last year, the thing that we ran into was that many of the firms that we solicited were not familiar with the community board's kind of like work and role and scope. And so we ended up with kind of proposals outside of our budget range. And I think there are concerns that I have about putting that budget range up front, because I think, you know, having them reverse tailor that sometimes can also be problematic in terms of the services that you get. But I wanted to open that up to this committee.
So I think it's very important that we follow the procurement guidelines and have a request for proposal process. I also disagree about not being upfront about the budget, because I think what happened last year is we didn't tell some of the firms what the budget was. George Janes has a different business model than some of the other firms that were out there, but it's not clear to me that the other firms wouldn't have been able to meet our budget requirements. You can have the firms explain the work that they'd be able to do for that budget, and we could have a conversation about that. But I don't think we should write off firms just because, you know, we should be able to see what they can do for a certain price point. I don't think it serves us to hide the ball on price and then like knock a few of the consultants out for price. Because I think you'll remember last year, at least some members of the committee had concerns because George Janes also has that firm has a certain client base, and they've taken legal positions and acted as an expert witness in land use decisions that may be contrary. Actually, they are contrary to some of the resolutions we've passed. Now, of course, we can make our own independent decisions. We're not bound by the views of a land use consultant, but that is you know, at least for some members of this board, that is a very political choice. And you know, I would not support a process that sort of preordained that choice, like what happened, I thought, last year.
And just to clarify, we are under the threshold for the procurement guidelines, so we are able to, we could just throw it
Okay,
wherever
good to
we
know.
want. I think was it 20,000?
20,000.
So the amount of money that we're sort of reserving for that is under that threshold.
That's what I was gonna, yes.
Nancy.
I was gonna say, I disagree with what Ankur is saying. Our experience has been that George Janes has been very neutral and fact-based in his process of reviewing our applications. And the specific instance that Ankur refers to, I actually asked George Janes about it, and he said he does not take a position, but he was hired to write a position up for a community group that hired him to do that. So that was work for hire, not his own personal opinion. So I think we need to keep that in mind. I would just like to go over some of the thoughts I have, but maybe other people want to speak first. Okay, so here's what I found. He was highly accessible to me and to the committee. He was easy to reach by phone. He was available for quick questions. There was no gaps in his availability. He provides real-time guidance on complex zoning matters, including ULURP applications, zoning text amendments, development rights, transfers, and interpretation of zoning regulations and bulk controls. He was responsive and collaborative. He does what we asked him. He follows up, and he's comfortable being interrupted during presentations, which I really loved. He gave presentations and we interrupted him constantly, and he was fine with that. He wanted to answer our questions. He wanted us to be informed. He contributes to a more neutral, fact-based committee process that is aligned with our perspectives. He shares useful context and information from work with other community boards that expands our awareness of citywide land use issues. So it's we get to pile on to, if you will, economy of scale, because some of the issues we're dealing with, he's already studying for other community boards, particularly other Manhattan community boards. He serves as a quick, reliable source of information, improving the efficiency of our committee discussions. He provides continuity across applications and supports clearer understanding of zoning language. We have something coming up, and I spoke with him today. I was talking about digital billboards, and he said, no, it's illuminated and flashing advertising signage is what it's called, not digital billboards. So that it's important to use the language of the zoning text when we are talking zoning applications. I think it's a very practical, effective resource for our LUHC committee, and I strongly recommend approval to maintain the consistency and to keep the quality of our work at its highest level.
Thank you. Sure.
I was just gonna say, if we're under the procurement guidelines, I think there's value.
You're on.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to make sure we're oriented on the right thing, I think the question of whether we work with George Age or not is sort of separate from the manner in which we decide we have a land use consultant. Having gone through this process last year and seen that it takes a very particular person and outfit to meet our needs and our budget. And also to what Ankur has said, which I've sort of theoretically been sympathetic to, like to have seen how I don't think that there's evidence over the past year that our decision-making has been influenced by a particular ideology in one way or another. I don't know that the board would have made any different decision on any of the matters that came before. Again, my opinion.
Yeah.
If the land use consultant had been different. I don't have an objection to renewing the contract. What I would caution the board and what I would say is that we should think about what that term looks like for when we would do a new RFP, because I don't want sometimes these things have a way, the inertia turns into, and this is just who our consultant is. So, and it becomes very hard to change once it gets ingrained. So we could say, and we don't have to decide tonight, but we could say 3 years we look again, 5 years we look again, just things like that, I think are important, but anyway.
Worried. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so again, strongly disagree with this. It's impossible to know what influence a land use consultant had on particular votes, and if we would have voted differently or phrased anything differently, his ideas certainly could have made their way into resolutions. It also is impossible to know if the process would have been different depending on how we organize our use of the land use consultant. I do not think he was neutral. For example, in City of Yes, in his presentation that he made to us, he did not.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Which was not last year's.
No, that's, I was gonna say, I didn't say he was neutral. I
Okay.
said, I don't know.
No, yeah, but I don't know, like,
Yeah.
who's to say if it was a different
Yeah,
person that
fair.
came in, how our resolution would have come out. I don't think you could know.
Yeah.
And I do not think he was neutral in his presentation to us. For example, in his City of Yes presentation that we hired him for, he did not even mention how much housing could be created out of the proposals. And he had slide after slide showing how large and out of context buildings would be without talking about the benefits. Now, we could take that for what it was, and there's even an argument that we had solicited that kind of feedback, which maybe says something about how that process worked rather than his work product. But I did not find that an unusual presentation at all. When we had considered him among the other consultants last year, I went through the list of the things that he's done. And I know that it might be that he was hired to do that, but he took these projects on. He, in front of CB4, came out against a proposal to repeal the state FAR cap, which limited our ability for more housing. He served as an expert witness in case after case against more density. He has argued he's argued for subsidized housing requirements that most economists think would prevent new housing development. I really dislike the idea that we go with somebody who I think has an ideological track record without even bringing it in front of the board. I think it's,
To be clear, at the end of this, we would bring whatever person we did in front of the board.
but we'd only have one option, right? You'd say like, we vote to renew, and then people wouldn't even have a choice.
Sure.
I think there should be a
just wanted to
process that
clarify.
involves a choice.
David,
So, I mean, I guess to both points here, I would probably say that renewing George for the basic vanilla run-of-the-mill questions that come up when we do regular applications is, I think, a perfectly fine answer. I would also say the next time there's a city of yes or whatever, that we, you know, he's at will, so we could then at that point say, all right, this is a different thing. We want to go out and find, you know, the best consultant for something of this scale, where the dollars would be different. So, I mean, personally, I had a positive experience with him on the kinds of questions that Kevin raised. Some stuff that we ended up bringing back to George, and I thought he was very responsive. It was a very complete answer. I don't see a lot of these biases, you know, on that kind of stuff. So, you know, I guess I would say let's renew him on a scope that's kind of plain vanilla. Just provide, you know, at-will services to the committee, and to the extent that some other, you know, proposal of scale comes up, that then at that point we go out and do an RFP.
listen,
I have two questions. One is a clarification on process here, which is if we are now voting on whether we are renewing or,
yes, I mean, we're not gonna take an official vote on this because we're not required to structure the process.
okay,
But I do want to hear people's opinions about basically option A, which is we do another RFP process. Option B, we just renew George Janes for another kind of year long. And then at the end of that, we will take that to the board for a vote to approve that expenditure. But as Ankur pointed out, by that point, this committee will have made the decision about which direction to go. Even if we did do option A, I presume that we would come like we did last year with a recommendation for a consultant. So the board would be voting on generally one option in either scenario.
okay, thank you. And then the second question is just to further understand sort of what's on the table with either of these options. In the case of moving forward with an RFP, what would the disruption to ongoing kind of questions and process be? Like if we had ongoing questions, what would happen?
So we have contracted George out through the end of our fiscal year, so he would not, I think through June 30th, right? And I don't know that I know exactly how much of the 10,000 that we spent from last year he's put in, but he's generally seems relatively generous with his time. So I presume that nothing will change between now and June 30th, at which point we would have to have made up our minds because that money has to go out the door before the use it or lose it period is over.
We're in kind of the same situation we were the last time we did this, which is if we do an RFP, we're gonna have to rush through it. In order to get the, you know, put it out, give people time to respond. Do the apples to apples comparison, which took a long time the last time, and then make a decision and get him paid. With an agreement, you know.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's the timeline that the city budget
Yeah.
process
No,
affords
I
us.
know, but I mean, in theory, we could have started this a month ago, or then allowed more time for.
We could have.
process, 'cause
But to the question about
this is
being
what
upfront of the
derailed
budget, but to the question about being upfront of the budget, we wouldn't, if
Yeah,
we start
yeah.
earlier, we can't be upfront about the budget number.
And we are headed this time because we already have an RFP from last year, so we
Yeah,
can
that's
modify that rather than.
That's true.
move
But the
forward.
process itself chewed up a lot of it.
It did, and we would have to basically make that decision by the next meeting.
Yeah.
Nancy.
I would just like to state that, yes, we did ask George Danes to give us worst case scenario. When he studied City of Yes, and I believe we were one of the few community boards that approved the City of Yes. So if he did have a negative position, which I don't recall, it did not affect our vote or what we gave in terms of approving the City of Yes. So it did not really affect us in any way that I know of.
Yep.
I have some questions and then I also like, I like what David suggested. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I have these questions around, you know, if we are just going to revert to what is known and, you know, who we've been working with, and I understand the argument for the benefits to continuing the relationship with them. But what's in the pipeline? There isn't gonna be another City of Yes. Like, I think it's good to be thinking ahead, planning for the future when we do have an RFP process. And competitive bidding. I don't know what's in the pipeline, because I don't pay attention to them the way you do on your committees.
Did you want to speak to that?
But can I ask one other
Oh,
question? So I do take on first point about. There are some people who feel George James is, I don't know, like, in the last process, I wasn't privy to what was going on. You mentioned that there were several bids who dropped out because, I mean, in the end, how many actual
Not that they dropped out, but that the number that they came in
was
well
too
exceeded
high?
our budget, yeah.
Okay, too high. And is George James the person that all the community boards work with? I mean, who are the others that are?
Many boards do. I don't know that I have a comprehensive list. I know CB6 does. I think CB8
I think
does.
there are maybe 4 boards in Manhattan that do.
Okay,
I don't think we found other groups. I mean, the other people that didn't really have direct experience, working for community boards this way. They had done projects,
Sure, right, yeah.
but in terms of
That's fair.
providing,
Yeah.
you know, these kind of at-will services, I don't think anybody else really did.
Like, one of the benefits of having George James is you get him, it's his firm, you get the boss. He's the expert. You're not funneled through a team of employees that work for a senior urban planner. You're working with the urban planner who has more than 20 years experience, and that's a high level of information, I believe.
Can you talk a little bit about kind of the pipeline of what we sort of anticipate coming out that we know aware of, or anything that you're aware of?
Well, we're going to have an issue regarding illuminated and flashing advertising signs, which I call LED digital billboards, but as I was corrected by George James, that's not zoning language. The zoning language is flashing and illuminated advertising signage, for which building owners get an enormous profit because they're selling advertising on their building, and probably brings in more money than even any of the rents they get on their buildings. So this is a huge thing. We have one now that is in enforcement, which we'll have to deal with. And then we have another one coming up for Herald Center, which we will have to take up. So that's a very complicated situation, and it has to do with building owners wanting to expand the theater sub-district, special theater sub-district, where illuminated and flashing advertising signage is encouraged.
Are there any rezonings that you're aware of?
I kind of hope Manhattan plan, something happens with it, which would be a pretty big, you know.
But we don't know anything. about
Yeah,
that
though
yet.
when I brought that up before our board, it was sort of like, that was Adams. And now I don't know what's next.
And we
It's
wanted
Adams
to,
and
and
all the
we-
community.
and we wanted to do our bathroom text amendment for public accessible bathrooms in Midtown, and George has already worked on that. And we were going to go to the Department of City Planning and City Planning Commission with a proposal, but we've been waiting for the commissioner to be appointed, so that was stopped. So we are in the middle of that with George, and he's done a very good job, did a great presentation for all of us, gave us like 7 different options to pursue. I don't know if any of you remember it. On the public bathroom access in POPs. We know the mayor supports it, so it would be great if we could keep him on to continue with that, but the timing is slowed down because the appointments were slowed down.
Any other thoughts on anyone online? Libby, go ahead.
I just remember from when we went through this last year, I, of course, without knowing the pricing for all of them, like the consultant, that was, of course, the most expensive one. But I was wondering, I like the idea of maybe letting, if we're going through the procurement process, like letting everyone know like what the reality of the budget is before getting things back. That's just the one thing with my, I understand that like part of what I liked about it was that it was for a larger a larger chunk of their budget in the comparable. I think they've done stuff for CB6. And that was because of the larger scale thing they needed advice for than our sort of like, I do also appreciate the way that our current consultant is available for these smaller scale projects. So I just wanted to put that out there too, sort of on both sides of it. But I think letting people know what the budget is before they give us something back is helpful.
Thank you.
Sorry, that last question, would, if something of the scale of Manhattan Plan, I'm not saying it would come up, but if something of that scale did come up, would we then, is it possible that because we have George James on retainer, that we would use him for that, or would this not be like a sufficient scale for that? I'm not sure.
You go first, Nancy.
Okay, well, we understand that Manhattan Borough President is hiring 2 new land use consultants, so we would certainly begin by reaching out to them and get some guidance, so that would be available. And I know that the Borough President is very concerned about housing. I mean, that's part of what he ran on, was affordable housing in Manhattan. So I think we would have that available to us.
And presumably, nothing's on the horizon, so there'd be a significant, I think, lead time before it came to us for that, but also if it's happening in the next fiscal year, there's also a very real possibility, as Marisa pointed out, that we'll have a budget surplus next year, so we might be able to hire an additional consultant if we felt that was necessary for that, if needed.
Okay. Because I basically asked just because to Ankur's concerns, you know, I would, if we had a major thing like that come up, wanna have a RFP process for the person to assist us with that, in which of course George James would be involved, but you know, I wouldn't wanna just default to using him if a big thing came up. But I think that for small things, you know, I don't mind.
Kevin. Thank you.
Yeah, just quickly, I thought Libby and Seth both had good comments there, and I'll just echo. I think David said this, and you know, a year ago when we had this discussion, you know, I was concerned about, you know, the political bias of George James and so on and so forth, and you know, just granted, it's only been a year that I've been on land use, but I really haven't seen any issues. Granted, there haven't been any City of US level issues that have come before us necessarily, but anyway, that's kind of mediated my concern on the issue. So, you know, my concerns that I expressed at the same discussion this time last year, I would say are less so now. That's all.
Very true.
Oh, this has gone on, I'll just clarify, like, you know, when I say there's value in staying consistent, it's not a shallow comment, it's, even before I was on this board. When I was tuning into land use meetings, and so we saw George James, I was on many times. And one person's opinion wasn't a board member at the time. I just thought it was incredibly thorough, seemed approachable. I didn't necessarily think he necessarily had a dog in the fight. And so forth, and if that is now layered upon, or what Nancy said, we can layer upon that in terms of he's approachable, you've said he's generous with his time. It's with all that, I was just trying to say it. That's to why I thought you, but there's value in consistency.
So I don't think we need to take a formal vote on this, but maybe an informal vote. How are people feeling about, I'll say option A, RFP, option B, extending George James' contract for another year? So who is leaning towards option A, which is the RFP? And who's leaning to? Okay.
Somewhat, but I would do B if it was like.
And who's leaning towards option B? Those online?
Kind of in between, but I would say
You just pick one.
leaning more toward it.
That's how this works.
Milan said more toward A.
More towards A, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it seems as though option B is the preference, so I think we'll move forward with that. So we'll reach out to George, ask him to provide us a proposal for another year, and then bring that to the next cycle.
So we won't discuss this at the full board meeting.
We will discuss this not at this full board meeting, but we'll
Okay.
discuss it at the next
When
one.
there's a proposal.
Okay, great, okay, great. I just wanted to be prepared for whatever I needed to do.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, member survey results. Your Honor, I'll turn it over to
Sorry,
you.
do we have to approve the other budget items where we talked about the spending on the furniture,
Social events.
the social events?
We didn't do that last year, did we?
Something else.
Like when we bought all that furniture that we unfortunately had to return? That,
No, it doesn't need a full board vote. I don't know what you want to do, Mr.
okay.
I'm otherwise supportive if we want to have a vote to just say that we've reviewed it and we want to propose spending our budget that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, why not?
Yes.
Let's take it to a vote. And we have quorum, right? Okay. Because Tiffany, I saw her online as a church.
She was on.
She was.
I did see her, yeah.
Not any.
Really proud to see.
Log off. We do not have quorum right now.
You have 9.
We have 9?
Seven, eight,
Oh, right.
nine.
All right, we have 9, sorry. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Hold on.
All right, let me just make sure I've got everything up to date.
But
Okay.
just I'll restate it while you're setting that up, just to clarify for everyone, this is a vote for the budget allocations that we discussed earlier, which is approximately 8,200 for updated IT items, approximately 8,000 for furniture for the new office, $10,000 approximately for the land use consultant, and then the remainder to be spent on potentially subscriptions or software and or a social event.
Okay, let's take it to a
Okay.
vote then. All right, starting from the top, Seth.
Yes.
Okay, Encore.
Yes.
All right, Kevin, virtual.
Yes.
Okay, Nancy.
Yes.
All right, Libby, virtual.
Yes.
All right, Milan is a yes. Yoran.
Yes.
All right, Kieran.
Yes.
Okay, and Tiffany is not here, so we're gonna skip over her.
I'm-
Brett.
Hey, Milan, I'm here. I'm a yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't get to you yet, but I will.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were going with first name. My bad.
Yeah, I'm just, yeah, sorry. All right, Tiffany, we're gonna skip, Brad.
Yes.
Okay, David,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Yoran.
Yes.
Okay, that is, unanimous yays. So yes, that's approved.
Thank you. Okay, now member survey results. Ron, turn it over to you.
Yeah, so as I think all of you know, we did a survey of our board membership to check in, and that's kind of a good management hygiene of how things were, how our board members feel things were going, both at the committee level and at the full board level. I would say, and you have full results in your packet. I would say overall, it's a pretty good picture. You know, the results are show a lot of satisfaction or positivity about a lot of aspects of board operation and board governance. So I think that's great. You know, I think one of the things we should talk about is what we're going to do with the information here and whether there are action items to take away. Before I get into some thoughts on that, let me just say from a process perspective, and Brad, we haven't really talked about this, but I may be going a little right. It seems to me that what should happen moving forward from here is that committee chairs and vice chairs should talk to each other about what they see at their committee level. And other people should think, and we should plan to come to the next exec to talk about particular action items if there are those to take. Like, I just don't know that we're ready to talk about those in depth, you know, tonight. That seems like a reasonable thing to do because I think chairs and vice chairs in particular will need time to sort of sit with what they see. So anyway, that's my proposal on that. I will say, there are some overall areas that I think we can all think about. And that is, some of this is summarized in what is section 3 in this document. Do we want to say who summarized this document?
Yeah.
Which
It wasn't from our poll, it was from another poll.
Which I think actually, this is a great use case, because I think a member of the board, me, summarizing and trying to find these strands might be biased in terms of what they pull out or what they choose to see. So I think this is actually a really good case of using something like AI to summarize, especially the comments. I think, you know, meeting length and facilitation is probably always something that's going to come up, especially in comments. And there's a certain amount of that we're not gonna be able to get away from. But if there's something that I saw, it goes back to sort of what are we spending our time on? And is our time being spent efficiently? So I would argue that length itself is not necessarily the issue, but more sort of how we're spending that time and what that time is being spent on. And so I would encourage chairs and then also Brad and myself to think about if there are improvements in that area that can be made that makes our time feel like it's being spent on the most important things. And the most amount of time is being spent on that. And then the second item in section 3, I think, is we're talking about, you know, what you saw in the comments was some people expressing desire to feel more connected to a broader amount of the people in our district. And this is something that's actually come up a lot, and you see different committees dealing with it now in terms of the desire to do survey-based work. We see the Parks Committee doing that now. How we connect to a more representative swath, or just simply more people in our district, people or different sort of populations that maybe aren't coming to meetings, things like that. I think that's a really important question. I think the office has a big role to play in that. And no matter what we talk about and decide, we would definitely need to engage with the office about their processes, their procedures, understand how we can support their work in that, because they are more sort of the front line of that. But I think it is important for us to talk to. I mean, you know, I think board members themselves are the public. Right, so there's that. Like we both represent the public, but we also are the public. So there's just us being in a room that satisfies some of that. But I also think this has come up a lot, and we need to grapple with it and what we can do about it. So those are the areas that I would say we should focus on board-wide, and then I would love chairs and vice chairs to talk between now and next exec, and maybe we can talk what that conversation next exec exactly looks like, that we can sort of center on 3 or 4 things that we want to focus on.
Thank you. Questions? Melissa, or do you have a comment?
Comment.
Okay, any questions? Okay, comment, go ahead.
Thank you for having pulled this together. I know Claude did the themes, but in terms of the questions, I think this is incredibly helpful.
That's very good.
So a couple thoughts. I totally agree in terms of like next steps and action items with committees taking sort of what the results of the survey were back. Just an observation on the constituent engagement piece. I think there's a lot of tie-in with the cross-committee silos and shared resources there as well. Like there's a lot of information that would give us maybe a better or broader picture of what perspectives in the community are that are maybe currently being siloed in, you know, individuals representing on bids or information that's sitting in committees. So I think those 2 things could also be connected in terms of giving people kind of that broader picture. And then one other thought just generally is how we might share, you know, I think if we're taking as next steps on the committee's piece, figuring out what the like sort of action plan coming out of this might be, how are we sharing with the board more broadly what some of these results are there? Do we want to share this, or just process wise? What do we want to share? Any takeaways? So just thoughts on that as well, I think, to consider.
Yeah, can I respond to that? I would love, the way I see it is that I would love to present all of this back to the board, but along with, and here's what we're gonna do with it. I think without that second part, it feels a little incomplete. So.
I think that makes sense.
You know, any thoughts or concerns about that sort of, and good job, you're on, I agree with your approach. So any thoughts or concerns about that before we move on to the next item? But otherwise, we'll come back to this next month's executive committee.
Sorry, just to make sure I understand, I mean, are we going to take some of these suggestions? I know they were AI generated, but their summary of problems that folks have, is there a plan to try to implement some of them, or is it?
So here's what I would say. I would say if you're, which you are not, if you are chair or vice chair of a committee.
Yeah.
Talk to each other, talk about your committee. I think for the board-wide stuff, that's on all of us. Think about what areas in that section that you agree with, or there's other things in the comments that you think were not put out should be. And then come to the next meeting with as sort of baked and concrete an example of what you would like to see done. And then let's have the next meeting be about actions and solutions.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. The last item for new business, you all received a letter to Madison Square Garden. This is based off of a SLAP resolution that we did for their liquor license in February of 2024. And sort of spurred by I will say my personal capacity, shocking reporting from Wired. Relating to the way that they are utilizing facial recognition technology within and also around their facility. And so I think we had discussed at one point in time that, you know, letters like this are able to go out without a board vote because they're relying entirely upon a formerly passed resolution from the board. However, for the executive committee's awareness of sort of what that communication is going out, we're sharing it now. So if there's any questions or comments. Okay.
You'll never be able to go to a Knick game again.
I never went to one before, so. All right, new business. David.
Have we heard anything about the new crop of,
Oh, thank you. So we have not heard anything. I will say in my own personal capacity, I received an email on Friday giving me 3 options yesterday, today, and tomorrow for my group interview. I have taken tomorrow. But beyond that, that timing is a little bit delayed from what I heard at the last borough board. But the last borough board, they were still thinking that they were on track to sometime in May appoint us our new crop. Right now, we are at 45 members. We have 6 members that I'm aware of that are not reapplying, which means we should expect somewhere in the ballpark of 11 new members.
how does that number compare to what we've gotten in the past?
It is less than last year and the year before, but much greater than many of our other companion boards. But we've proven ourselves able to handle it, so that's all I have at the moment.
We hope they're here for the June board meeting.
Right, yeah,
Like that is the goal.
yeah. Okay,
With all the recommendations that Claude's gonna make about our operation.
It's an incredibly difficult, I mean, I don't want to apologize for the borough president, but it's an incredibly difficult process to just jump right into in January. You know, it's difficult anyway, just to go in cold like that is really.
Yep.
Murnal, Julie and I did our group interview on Sunday
I think
At,
that's an option.
at, I think it got filled right away.
Oh, okay.
I got it at 2 a.m. in the morning and I was awake and I just signed it.
Did it?
It got help. And it was incredibly helpful. It was 3 Zoom rooms. You're assigned to a committee and you're given 3 problems to work out. And it was interesting to see people collaborating and working together and solving it and working things out. So I think it's a good process. And I was told end of May.
Mm.
Which is in May.
End
So,
of May.
we'll see.
June.
Okay. Any other new business? All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Meeting.
Meeting adjourned.
Bye, everybody.